And we're live for Mayor's Update. And folks, we have a very special guest today.
Yes.
Malcolm Jones.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Stuffy the elephant.
Oh, as well as Stuffy. You know, he's a runner-up.
As well as
He's
Stuffy the elephant. No, but it's great to have
We
Malcolm.
come as a team.
I mean, Malcolm, I'd say we've known each other almost the whole time you've been in town. But just
we've crossed paths many times. Yes,
right?
yeah.
And mostly at Wendy's. But it's
mostly at Wendy's.
Yeah.
And most people probably don't know what Malcolm does because he flies under the radar a bit.
Yeah.
But there's a little known site, you might have heard of it. It's called St. Thomas Happenings. And Malcolm is the creator of that site.
Right. On social media, on Facebook. So please, if you're not a member, go join. They could use 10,000.
And I usually start with an apology.
I find it one of the most entertaining places to visit in town because you really do get a great cross section, right? And I see that's what you've tried to do with social media. Not just that one, but other social medias that you are part of.
Yeah, it's evolved over the years as well.
Right,
it was a little bit edgy in the beginning, right?
Okay.
Because that kind of attracted people.
Agreed.
And then it got sorted out into some people found it too edgy, and others felt it was too restrictive.
Not edgy enough,
yeah,
right?
You know, so they splintered off into other groups, and that I'm usually blocked from now. But
there has to be. I know of at least 10, I think, different splinter groups that are St. Thomas Happenings, different versions.
Yeah,
nowhere near the membership of the original.
No, they can't.
But you're right, and to each their own to do so. Look, debate is not needs to be discussed in a professional and good way. And if all you're going to do is go on a site and use bad words and say how bad somebody is, then I understand. Who's going to visit that anyway, right?
And so many posts, they could write a long post that's very thought out and wise, and you can, and then they finish with the last two words, that just,
it's enough that you can't.
That's it, gone.
So look, we love it, and we like this forum in the sense that we talk about St. Thomas Happenings a lot, right?
Very often.
We like getting the input from the people here and that can ask real city questions. Joe, I read somewhere on the social media that this, and we can correct it and help it and say, no, that wasn't the intent. That isn't why we do roundabouts, but no. And some of the things I'm asked to do on some of the other sites are anatomically impossible too, but they don't stay up long, but they're there, and it's fun for me to see every side. I will tell you that occasionally Stephanie says, we can't talk to that guy anymore. He said this. And I said, of course we can still talk to him. It doesn't make him not our friend. He can be from a different political spectrum or somewhere else.
Yeah, and I've just shared our live broadcast over to the St. Thomas Happening site. Okay. Now, maybe one of the moderators will share it in time for everyone to see this live. Maybe they won't. We'll find out.
We hope so.
But there's the other thing we tend to do here is we get a fairly good turnout on the night we record, the night we do this. But before the next time, 7 days later, we tend to really get a lot of other people who said, did you see St. Thomas or Mayor's Happenings, Mayor's Updates? I'm stealing everything tonight, right? And then our numbers go up over the course of the whole week. And so,
that's the joy of social media. You can go another time and look at it, right?
And say, somebody says, he didn't say that. And so then they go, look, we talked about the show we did with Andrew Sloan, really growing in the week following.
Yeah, because we'll have the episode, and only so many people can join live, and then they'll check it out later. It'll get shared around. So I think that one is at 6,500 now, and then last week's episode's at 6,000.
Right.
So, but I mean, a lot of that is thanks to a site like St. Thomas Happenings, where you can post it, and there are a lot of people that go and see it. So as someone from the community, we've talked about this before, Malcolm, a year or two ago, as I started Established Media, and I was like, I'm going to do a bunch of stuff. And then St. Thomas Happenings came, and I was like, I don't have to do a lot of this. This is great.
Happening.
Yeah. Because, I was just volunteering my time to do this stuff.
Well, we were going to do man on the street kind of stuff. You were going to do opinion on the street
and like speakers corners type stuff. And we have St. Thomas Happenings. Like, there's no point in reinventing the wheel.
I've had a desire to walk along Talbot Street and I just talk to all the guys, coming out of Grace Cafe or whatever, and just get a little bit more earthy, But,
Well, and I think we capture that. I think
Yeah.
on St. Thomas Happenings and some of the other sites you've created, we get that. We get the complete cross section. We have a bunch of new people in St. Thomas at the point of 1,000 or 2,000 a year, more people. At the home show, I think I may have shared this with you. I met more people who'd been here 2 years or less,
Yeah.
right, than good old St. Thomas people. And they want to tell the different story about the St. Thomas they came to live in. And I tell them, but that's still correct. We all can tell our stories about why we're here now and what we think and what needs to get better, clearly, and what we can be super proud of. Well, we've been doing some pretty good stuff in our community, so we're pretty pleased. We'll talk about the downtown vote last night too, but
yeah, we'll get to that stuff a little bit later in the show. What I did want to go into though is like, Malcolm, you created this site. It's taken off. It's the most popular social media site in St. Thomas. How did you come up with the idea to do it in the first place?
Yeah,
it's a little bit ironic how I got in this business. Is that I was on a site in England, and two guys were discussing how they were blocked from another group for talking about roundabouts.
Roundabouts.
So
even in England.
And
Wow.
if you look at my site,
Yes.
roundabout Oswestry. So I said, well, that's easily solved. I'll start a new group, and you can talk about it on there.
Right.
And that kind of got that one. And you realize there's people out there that want to have a voice. They want to talk. They want to.
Well, even about what somebody else might not find thrilling, right?
Yeah.
They do want to talk about it.
Well, and also, fun fact, the only time I've been banned from St. Thomas Happenings was when I did a post about roundabouts.
Yeah. I can imagine who did that.
I've taken the high road. I don't believe I've ever been banned in any of my comments or anything.
Well,
so, yeah,
it was.
You took the low road, did you?
I didn't think it was that low, but I messaged Malcolm. I was like, Malcolm, I've been banned. I can't see St. Thomas Happenings anymore.
I'm the most, I don't know if the word liberal is applied,
no,
but I am the most tolerant out of all the administrators out there.
Yeah.
That they're, and sometimes,
and there
he
has
didn't mean
been a
anything.
couple.
Because I'm a believer, as you just said, that if you get a conversation going, if you can't speak to your enemies,
right,
then you're never going to
clearly,
resolve anything.
Right.
If you only speak to your friends,
right.
I was telling that to the wife. If you only watch CNN, you're going to get one view.
That's
if
it.
you watch Fox, you're going to get another view. You got to speak across.
There'll be a few comments today because the Prime Minister was here yesterday, and they go, well, Mayor, why would you spend time with him? And I said, because he's the Prime Minister of this country, and if we don't have all three levels of government helping out a community like St. Thomas, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
we might as well,
At some point, you all have to work together to get things done. If you're just fighting,
you need to go to someone who isn't in your friendship group often.
Yeah,
and say, hey, right? I think this, and you think that. I mean, people laugh, and I know I've told the story in here before, but I counted Jack Layton as one of my greatest friends in Ottawa. Now, we didn't have a whole lot of philosophy things that we thought about together, but we both went to Parliament altruistically saying we can make the country a better place. And we found plenty of conversations, and I always say, you know what? You'll get through 85% of your conversation before you start getting to the point where you may disagree.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So let's accomplish the 85% of stuff.
Yeah. Settle that first and then work on the difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are people who are simply contrary. So it doesn't matter what you comment, whether it's on St. Thomas Happenings or about roundabouts or whatever else, they're just contrary to it. They seldom offer a full solution as to how that might be better, right? And that's what we try to do here on Mayor's Update, is to say, well, let us tell you why it's happened and give you a little justification why we do certain things. But look, I can't convince the absolute. I just can't ever convince. I just share with them what my thoughts are and say, thank you very much. I've given you my opinion too.
If you complain without a solution, I think you're just whining.
Yeah.
Have a solution or go in the direction of a solution at least.
Well, and as if I don't mind saying, we can be accused of spending a little time at caps off.
Yes. I think that's
a
fair.
local pub. And often the conversation goes to St. Thomas happenings.
Mhm.
And I often have to say, I get some of my best thoughts from some of the contrary opinions on there, because they didn't come with a solution, but they told us what they didn't like about it. As a politician, you'd like to be able to help them also. And so we come up with some pretty good ways of handling homelessness or handling other things based on other people's contrary opinions to it.
Yeah.
So,
And
but you get to hear them.
also nudging them towards the customer service line at City Hall so that the complaint can be officially recorded on record, and then you can tabulate it, and you can see how many of those things come in.
Right.
Because if it's just one person out of 45,000.
And a lot of people just don't know the official route to complain about things or to get things fixed. They know how to complain, but they just don't know, how do I do it properly?
That's the way to put it.
Yeah.
Malcolm, I noticed lately, and it's been getting over the last 4 years so much better, that often other people will suggest the alternative way to, well, thank you for telling us about the pothole on that street, or thank you for telling us about a restaurant that you didn't like. But did you speak to the right person on it? Did you use customer service, or did you go speak to the manager of that restaurant? It could be that it was an unknown mistake, right?
Yeah.
And but we're finding that a lot of the citizens now, even on some of the social media sites, are clearly asking people to take the right step also, instead of just going on social media and complaining about it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of voices out there as well that are a little bit too scared to approach the manager in a restaurant and say,
I get it.
hey, this was cold or whatever.
Right.
So they get on their keyboard at home and, have an opinion, and it's...
No,
and
it's okay. They have to recognize they might get told that's probably not the right way, but they still got their opinion out. So that's brave of them to even do that, right?
Yeah.
But I in my comedy routine, I say, what's the definition of a nanosecond? That's after the first snowflake falls, before somebody posts on St. Thomas happenings that the snowplows aren't doing their job.
And luckily last year there wasn't a lot of snow.
Okay.
You should advertise how well you did with snow clearing.
Look at how great, right? Oh, but what was the comment? Well, what did all your snowplow guys do all winter long? And we must have saved a pile of money. Well, we explained that a lot. That no, we still have to own snowplows and hire snowplow operators just in case it does snow.
Yeah.
And so there are some other things, and we did build some bat boxes.
Yes.
Right. We did do some
lovely
other things,
bat boxes.
but mostly the savings were only against large emergency storms. Yeah.
We have a comment in from Brett Longfield. He says, freedom is key. As such, would Malcolm consider expanding to X, formerly Twitter?
As we mentioned before we started, I think we're inundated with stuff. There's just too much stuff in the world. And I'm on X, but I just follow it. I don't post on it. It's a lot of work. And, just happenings alone, you're constly monitoring it and deleting
and you can't even catch all. I mean,
you can't.
I've seen you say it, and some of the other moderators say the same thing. Do you think I just sit here all day and read everybody's comments and then make a ruling on it? No, sometimes somebody has to complain so that someone will say, and you'll go look and go, no, I didn't think it was that bad. I left it up.
And then they text me and say, why did you kick me out? Or, okay. And then you got to explain it. And,
I did.
But you still, honestly, we still see it at least once a day. Well, I got my comment taken down. Well, okay. And then usually when they go on to explain what their comment alluded to, it was correct.
Then it becomes clear on why, and then it's explained. And
oh, please, I'm a martyr. I had my comment taken down. What we heard, it was,
Yeah, and I mean, there's also some nastiness that goes about that too, because for example, I'm sure a lot of people know Jeff Wedlake. And there was a whole campaign.
It was sad.
There's why are we attacking someone who's volunteering to help? Right. And it's the same thing in the world of social service clubs and other things. Right.
Yeah.
Please don't ever criticize the one who's volunteering the time to do it. Right. I understand it, and your opinions are different, but this is an opinion site. Right. So we should have differences, or it gets really boring.
In the beginning as well, people, I think, kind of wanted you to block them or ban them, and they could talk to me all night. I wouldn't block or
Right.
ban anybody. I just kept talking to them, and it, but okay, we're a little bit quieter now. We're a little bit kinder now. That we keep it cleaner and nicer. But
And just before the show, we had a pre-talk, and one of the things we talked about as well, and this is something that I've discussed with the mayor in terms of established media as well, and in terms of things that I won't remove things unless it's a personal attack. If it's a well-argued argument or you're arguing something, absolutely fine.
Yep.
But if it's a personal attack against somebody, those are not the things that I'm going to share or will keep on my site.
yeah,
Well, and I'm almost of the other opinion. You and I have talked. There's 2 or 3 people who like to, target pretty firmly, and I won't take their comments down if it's off one of my comments. I'd love the world to judge that they were just pretty much talking stupid, and so fine, I'll be fine. I thank them for their comments and their opinions, and that makes them matter.
yeah.
Right? And then, well, you just never answer a question. I said, well, you just didn't like the answer to the question I gave, but I certainly answered most things that you talked about. And it's true. And there are degrees of how rude you want to be when you're displaying to other people. Because you have to remember that the person you're talking to on social media and you are not the only 2 people seeing the conversation. Right. And many people forget that. It's just, I want to attack that person for saying that, or I'd like to say nice things to that person for saying it. But there's hundreds of other people who are just standing on the sidelines, the lurkers of this world, or the people just concerned about issues, that are sitting there and going, wow, he made an ass of himself in that comment. We let it go.
But if we don't have civilized discourse when we're disagreeing, then we can't come to a better resolution.
I think often the group does help itself. Other people will comment and say, that you've just gone a little too far there, right? But some people just want to be an ass.
Moderator,
right?
in a way.
That's right.
They all look at the comments and they make their own judgment about whether that was over the top or whether it was acceptable. And
Well, you don't only just use social media for bad. No, I mean, you do a lot of other social media things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we talked before we went on air about some of the weight loss, the tops and some other stuff, right? And I know you and I were together just last week with a Toastmasters thing where we had an event, and so you do a lot of other pieces. What got you into just doing that much on social media?
when you get old, you need things to do, and
So you become mayor. No,
for like almost 30 years, I was in the mobile DJ business.
right.
So I was a DJ, and DJing is about playing the right music to get people dancing on the dance floor.
That's right.
And social media is kind of the same.
Yeah.
If you play the right music, you'll get the right conversation going.
That's right.
And you can step back. I'm a kind of like a closet, control freak.
Yeah.
I like to make it happen, but I don't really want to be a part of it. You don't put me in the picture. I'll stand behind and take the picture. That's far better. But and that's social media. If you can, I love to see it when people, and you look at the comments and you see, there's 100 comments on a very simple post. It impresses me.
Well, and it amazes me from time to time. Wow, that went on for a long time with a lot of good back and forth as to why I said this or somebody else said this, or I never thought of that. And you do start to hear what you would hear in good discourse and in good conversation.
And within St. Thomas, if there's a power outage or a road closure, like St. Thomas happening, number one place to find out where that stuff's going on.
Yeah.
Because people will share the information.
Even if Rogers flashes for about 1 second and, just knocks it. Boom, boom.
I used St. Thomas happenings the other night, the first night's game in the finals. And I got home late and I turned on where it would normally be on TV, not to mention any network, and it wasn't there. And I said, okay, so one of the other sports networks is carrying it. I can't look that up. I went immediately St. Thomas happenings, and within 15 seconds, somebody had said, hey, where's the night's game being broadcast? And I had it. So look, it's, yes, it's an emergency saver also, but it's also just good general information. Hey, where,
Yeah.
and we see it a lot. And some people get fairly criticized. Hey, where's the best shoe store? Where's the best, right?
Yeah.
And there'll be always somebody who wants to attack them for asking the question. And there'll be others who earnestly say, I've always liked Mugfords. They've been good and they've been around a long time.
Yeah.
Well, an appropriate answer, right? But to just attack
And some people, just Google it. Don't send them anywhere else. Answer it right here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's okay to give an answer to a question that's been asked, right?
And it's like when a little kid asks you a question. There's no bad questions.
That's right.
You just answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of groups. So this is a page of like just some of Malcolm's groups here.
Yeah.
And you can just see the mass number. But I just want to pop up and give a shout out for the number one group in terms of the people. And that's the Ontario Day Trips Guide. You've got 343,000 members.
Yes, and it promotes St. Thomas whenever possible. And it's focused around St. Thomas, and especially the photographers in this area.
Right.
People like Frank Pocosi and yourself and others that
they show a nice
Stanley.
Picture of a place.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so
say,
let's talk
visit
about
there.
it too.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Great. Perfect.
Yeah. And you can see the views, like on Ontario, it's 144,000 a day.
Yeah.
A day views, right? And St. Thomas Happenings, 26,000 a day.
So basically,
that's a lot of. If you had to hand flyers out, you would be doing it all day long, right?
No, and so I found many years ago in my earlier political career that social media is a great way to get a message out. You may not always like the comments you get back for your message, but it's out there in the numbers of people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's
And
the right
it
thing to
must
do.
have changed politics over the
clearly.
last years.
It really is. There isn't a local media source to
No.
the degree there was before. We still have My FM, and they do a very good job of both online, because they have to, but also their radio station. But there is not near what there used to be in the sense of print media. I mean, I used to love the tactile piece of picking up a newspaper on Sunday and reading through it, whether it was
when it was a thick paper.
I loved
a
it.
New York Times or
Yeah.
Toronto Star, didn't matter,
Oh, man.
right? But now I do that online, right?
It's not the same though. is it?
Well,
No.
and especially since we've somebody made a decision to take news off our Canadian social media.
I think that was a mistake.
Clearly
I
a
think
mistake.
a big mistake.
We have a number of uninformed voters. We need to have them reading even right and wrong news, make their own opinion, make their own decisions. But that trying to get social media to pay for the news sources was not the solution, and none of them went away after that happened. So maybe we could get back to allowing news to be back on social media.
The thing is, I go to my English group, and I try and take it from my English newspaper to
BBC.
put it on my English group. And I said, you can't do that because you're Canadian.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can't even take it out of country, but if you're in another country, you can take it.
you can. Yeah.
When,
the other
I
way.
went on holiday for 3 weeks there, suddenly I could start to see.
I can even see CTV right because I'm in the States or I'm in Mexico. Absolutely right. So.
Yeah. You can get around it with a VPN.
Yeah.
And Brett agrees with us about news coming back on. I don't know where we would find someone who disagrees. Thank you for that, Brett.
Yeah. I think
it's information we need to have, and if you can't hit the scroll button, how weak are you?
Well, I think it came around. There was a massive lobby from the large media corporations because they thought they were going to get a big payday out of the tech companies, whether it's Google, Facebook.
Right.
And they pushed the government on. The government went through with this mandate, and then those tech companies said, "We can just take it away."
Yeah, we don't have to pay for it. We'll do it in our own.
Yeah,
right?
I think they looked on Canada as a test, like they tried it in
for
Australia.
sure.
Yeah.
Now Australia resolved it, but nobody paid anybody any money. They kind of just agreed to
Allow it.
we'll do it,
Right.
but you're not getting any money out of it.
Right.
And I thought Canada, it's a small country.
I didn't think it
well,
would
yeah,
be
yeah.
the savior of our media.
I
That's
don't
what it
think
is,
so.
right?
You're
Good
never-
quality media is still the savior of media.
I always think it helped because you'd link to the newspaper, you'd link to whatever.
So they've lost all their traffic now,
Right.
Yeah.
which is it's absolutely crazy.
And how do you back out of that? As a politician,
Right.
you can't back. you know.
Well, I think you can, and that's the
Will the
other
new
thing.
government fix that problem? What do you think?
Let's get to a new government. There's a few problems to solve, but that's my opinion. Having met the Prime Minister again yesterday, we had a great conversation about some of our local issues and the things we could work on together, and he agreed to at least listen. So he was here. 8 months ago, we had a similar conversation about some of the housing and issues. But look, the answer with a politician is not always to say yes, right? The answer is to gather as much as you can and make decisions that are better for the good. But that's the type of conversation we had yesterday on brownfields here again in St. Thomas, an old industrial community, railway for sure. That's caused us to have land that is very expensive to use. He gets it. He doesn't know a solution to it, and we're trying to work together. But without the conversation between him and the premier of the province, we'll never solve it. It's a fairly expensive piece. So instead of saying you're wrong for not doing it, we say thank you for listening, and let's work together and see if we can find a way that we can all work together on it.
I'm just curious, when somebody like Trudeau comes to town,
Right.
Does his staff talk to your staff? Is it done at a different level as well?
Well, if I had staff,
because you guys are just talking.
Look at. I know Sean also came yesterday, our head of the economic development, and had some great conversations with some of the minister's staff and with the Prime Minister's staff. And so yes, that clearly does happen. But we also remember, and two of the MPs were from London, and we meet their staff more. And we always had pretty good relationships with some of the other MP staff. It's a great way to get the message through, but ultimately somebody at a ministerial level has to make the decision what we're doing. The answer right now has been a lot of announcements on funding, big funding, whether it's daycare, a lot of spending on daycare. Can we have some, please? Oh, well, you have to do this, and this. And then, I mean, even as we found with this daycare center, 3 months after it was open, we still weren't fully staffed. We have to get operating groups. But housing is the same way. We asked for help, assistance from the province and from the feds on affordable housing, or certainly supportive housing like Indwell. So there's us, Indwell, the province, and the feds, and all of our departments and our staff talking together to say which one deserves the funding. And there isn't enough to spread evenly, right? It has to be in fairly large chunks to those that can deliver it best. So that's part of where those conversations come in. But look, I never say no when the phone call comes. I never say, I was called Friday saying the Prime Minister is coming.
What if you had said no? You never say no, but...
Well, then that same announcement would have taken place without the Mayor of St. Thomas having a chance to speak to the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, two other ministers, and two other members of Parliament. I say that's a loss for my community if I didn't do that. But there would be those. Honestly, there would be those that will bite off their nose to spite their face on some of this stuff.
But you were our voice with the Prime Minister.
That's it. Well, I said when they called Friday, I said, I'll be happy to be there on Monday. You won't have a speaking role. I said, that's fine. Will I have time with the Prime Minister? Yes, you will. We'll make sure you get at least 10 minutes with the Prime Minister on whatever issue. Could you tell me what issue you might bring up? They're pretty careful with them, right? And I said, imagine that. The Mayor of St. Thomas is going to talk about housing, right? And I'm going to talk about housing, and maybe we'll talk about housing, right? And brownfields is one of the issues that's causing us some grief. So tell the Prime Minister ahead of time so he can be ready. And even in a little bit of a scrum beforehand, speaking with Peter Fragasanos from London, the MP from London, who's a parliamentary secretary for housing, I said, Peter, thank you for your help so far. You've been really good at listening and getting this stuff done, but we need more right now, and you need to help London and us. And he was absolutely, Joe, right on it. So, look, having the conversation is the start. Having a pleasant and detailed conversation is the middle. And really, in about 3 weeks, we'll all follow up with each other. Now, I'll get a note from the Prime Minister saying, thanks for being there, and you did, but we can answer back. And he was earnest yesterday. He said, look, Joe, if there's something specific to the city of St. Thomas having to do with what we've done here, whether it's, the Volkswagen deal or housing that's needed for that or roads that are needed for that, give us a call. Now, I don't think I'm going to get the Prime Minister on the phone, but I know his staff, and we can get the message through. That's what we would do. So it's
I was curious why
Still
he
good
selected
old-fashioned.
St. Thomas for the mess. I could understand if it was about car plants, but for
This one was
daycare?
because they had noticed one of the last times they were here that we had this new daycare center and a very well-designed Element 5 built
So it looked good in
daycare
a
center.
photo?
And they said, this will look good if we're talking about getting more of these built. And so great. And there is advanced teams out there all the time for the Prime Minister.
All right, we're over time, but there's a bunch of questions, so we won't be able to get to them all, but I'm going to run through some of them. First off, there's a comment from Dale Cummings who says erasing or limiting free speech is a violation of the Charter of Rights. People need to be held accountable. I think that's in reference to like limiting speech, and as we've said, we feel if it's a personal attack, we can't.
Okay, but then that's the limiting. If that's the limiting factor, then we're all okay with it.
Yeah.
Right. There'll be some will tell you no, you're not even allowed to do that.
Yeah.
I've always have the offer out there. If you want to speak freely, I will meet you anywhere
For
in
coffee.
St. Thomas for coffee. And
Yep.
only one person has ever taken me up on that ever.
Right.
Well,
some of them
and you
can't
can
get out
say
of their
whatever
mom's
you like to
basement.
me,
Yeah.
and I will give you my honest opinion.
I'm with
Also.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's in person is so much. There's so much more nuance. You have the
Yes,
body
yeah,
language.
yeah,
you have
yeah,
the tone. All
Yeah.
of that stuff in terms of the keyboard
Yeah.
side. You don't get. Brett Longfield saying we should bring back the town crier for information. I think that's interesting.
Is he volunteering?
Well,
Okay.
we should bring back a newspaper that most people subscribe to too, but it's not
Yes.
easy to get people to do in the day and age.
Yeah.
But any way to get information. You're right.
Yep. Beth Douglas.
Let me add, I will be at Elgin Center Food Court. Yes, I will buy anybody a coffee who comes to talk to me.
Perfect.
God, was that a
it's
mistake?
right across from my house. What time are we?
We have it
meeting?
on the record.
Right.
And the mayor's talked about doing coffee at the market
Yeah,
as
we
well.
want to do
Yeah.
coffee with the mayor at the market. Come
Yeah,
on up and
that's-
ask me whatever you got.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Beth Douglas says newspapers are available at the library, and that's right.
They're
They're
worldwide
for free.
newspapers, so they really are.
Yeah.
Right.
Sharon Anderson is saying, can we get Sarah Coleman and Karen McDade back on in a few weeks to speak about the St. Thomas Food Bank? I think that would be.
I think that's a great idea because
Wonderful
they're
idea.
going through some real shortages right now. So good idea.
I'll see it. Maybe they can come on next week
All right.
if they're available. I'll talk to
Yeah.
them. All right. Brett Longfield says, how are the federal and provincial governments involved in brownfield discussions in St. Thomas, in particular those representing the city's identity, the rail lands?
Exactly. That's why we think this is a federal issue and a provincial issue. Both have environment ministers. There's a number of things that are not the premise of levels of government. Our Constitution says that only certain things should be federal and only certain things should be provincial. And I've had that conversation, and I believe this Prime Minister's taken it way too far in taking back the other levels of government's business.
Right.
But environment is something that is covered by all three levels of government. There's environmental purposes to the federal government and to the provincial government, and the municipalities also, because we do wastewater treatment and a bunch of other things. And so we're always having to have those conversations with each other. But in industrial towns, we'll take ours because it's a railway town, but in industrial towns, in the past, there was not the premise that industry should clean up after themselves. And now we're finding it's a very expensive piece. But as your community gets bigger, you get to absorb that under tax base. And that isn't who should be paying to clean up. So we're asking the federal government right now, our conversation with the federal government and the provincial government is to help us find ways to do so. First of all, to find better technical ways to clean up the environment and certainly brownfields, but also to contribute to the cost in small municipalities.
Absolutely. And there has to be better ways to do it, because right now it's just like you're trucking all this stuff.
You're
somewhere
burning
else.
soil somewhere else.
The factory I used to work at in Mississauga, it took 3 years, I think, to clean it up. I mean, it was a large plant.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know how Ford was probably a big cleanup too, right?
No,
Well,
there was-
they
they
couldn't
did.
sell it until they cleaned
And
it up.
that's it. So
Yeah,
Ford itself took the building down and cleaned up some of the land to make it so that you could at least build other industrial facilities on it. We had Timken at the corner, and you see now it's mostly a commercial settlement, now some very tall residential. But the rest of that land is still waiting to be cleaned before more buildings can be built. So we want to help both municipally, provincially, and federally. We got to talk to each other and make it happen.
Another follow-up question from Brett is, why is housing the first priority of everyone amidst rapidly growing communities which require proper urbanization involving proactive planning practices?
Well, that's why we have official plans in every community across Ontario that are approved by other levels of government. It's why we have some design guidelines in our buildings to make sure it's not just always sprawl that and this council's been fantastic at adding density to it and making sure that we look at. But if you have a growing community, and there's no stopping a growing community if we have one, and we do, right? Then one of the first elements is to create jobs for the people who are coming to live here. Well, as soon as you do that, then you have to create the housing for the people who are going to work those jobs. And so it's very important that we take that as priority 1 and 2. Now, there's a bunch of other stuff. You see a lot of great road work going on to help handle the industrial growth and the housing growth. We have to do what we called smart planning. Do it all at once, little bits at a time, raise the whole boat with the tide. And that's why we have to always be talking about housing.
Could you ever see a time when you do another Grand Central?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's truly what's happening at the corner of Talbot and First. What will happen along the railway lands when Drewlow finishes along Elm and Wilson, there'll be a number of apartment buildings there if all goes to plan, but that's a big cleanup of some very contaminated land also. So yes, we have to, and we'll see when we get to the EDC plan report so far this year, that apartments saved our bacon because the single home builders were just not there. They're doing a great job, but when interest rates get to the point where there isn't sales for their homes, we've got to have density. So way to go. We went out and got apartment buildings to fill that gap. So we're still safe with the growth in our community.
And we need to give a shout out quickly in terms of council. Council was amazing last night. So if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. The city has it on YouTube.
Take a look at it because we did some amazing stuff last night. You and I will talk about it in the week when we don't have council, a lot about what's happened this month. And what this council for 5 years has been a blessing to me. And a blessing to the city because we've been pulling the oars in the same direction and not going too fast. We're looking at some other areas that still need to be developed in our community, some controversy in some of the communities, but we will make sure we touch the bases on all things as we get to it. But we can have community groups like Eastwood come with last night's announcement or what what's happening at Elma College, what's happening at First and Talbot, what will happen with Drewlow. We need all of it. And I have you heard any mayor across the country put their hand up and say, okay, we've got too much housing? I haven't heard one.
Not yet.
So I'm going
we're
to...
waiting for you to
Yeah,
get to that.
let's get there first.
And we may get there first. We might. But even still, I'll say then we're ready for the next number of people that want to come live in St. Thomas. So.
And just to follow on the Eastwood housing, it's an affordable housing project, which is geared to income. So it's a portion of what the median rental income is.
Yes.
So that's exactly what's needed in our community for the people who can't afford.
I think I'd like to have them on
rate.
too,
I think that'd be
because
fantastic.
they're going to build a fairly cooperative building of 82 units, all based on rents that are less than market rent. So we can get some people off our housing list, off our by names list that are homeless. And as we get people into a situation like that, then we empty out some people from the YWCA and from some of our other supportive housing into that type of housing and creates even more space, more needed space other places.
May I ask, how many's on your by name homeless list?
Right now, probably a little over 100 still. We just were recognized for having solved a third of that list in the last 2 years. No other community's done that yet Malcolm. So we're pretty pleased with that, and it's showing because if you visit many other communities, you're still seeing a lot of camping and stuff, and we're ahead of some. I'm being asked to go speak at some other communities. How did you do it? And I said, you get started. And that's truly all St. Thomas did different was
London
5 years
seems
ago
to be
we got
having a lot
started.
more tents on the sidewalks.
Well, and I think Sandra will help a lot with Mayor Morgan and help the city of London, but they have to just continue to get started. They are, but then carry through. You can't have changes to what you're doing, or you're just going to put yourself back. And so I think they'll be great. Yeah.
All right, we are way over time now. We have a bunch of questions that have come in. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold them over for next week,
Right.
And we'll start with them.
Answer those first next week with
because
whatever else we have for next week.
we don't want to. We're going to lose it when this goes to broadcast on Rogers. We're going to lose a whole.
They're going
bunch
to
of
cut
this.
whole sections of this out. We had a
So-
good
The good
conversation.
bits, the good bits.
No, but if you're watching on Rogers, please go to the Established Media Facebook page, and you can see the whole show. So if there's any parts you're like, oh, I think there was a part there I missed, go to the Established Media Facebook page. You can watch it on there. Go to our YouTube page. You can watch it on there. Thank you.
And we'll link it to St. Thomas Happening so you can watch it there too.
100%. Thank
Well,
you.
Just we'll share with everybody we can. We're not, there's nothing proprietary here. These are just answers for our community.
Yeah, I mean, if you're one of the very few people who haven't checked out St. Thomas Happenings or the Ontario Day Trips Guide that Malcolm runs, you should definitely check it out. It's a fantastic group. Malcolm, thank you so much for joining the mayor and I today.
Thank you for this
It's been great.
opportunity
This is
to
great.
embarrass myself again.
I think not, Malcolm. I think not. I'll join you for coffee at the mall if nobody else will.
There you go.
Maybe
There
if
you
it's the two of us, we might get
Hey,
one
you
more.
might get one.
Right.
Yeah, I'd love it. And then Harris Flower Farms, they're having a sale from 9 to 1 of compost and flowers on Sunday. And they're one of our new sponsors for this month. So check them out on Sunday. All right,
Okay,
everyone.
We need flowers.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Take care. Have a great night.
Thank you all.
We'll see you next week.
Sure.